Septic Community, Sargon's Downward Spiral, Part 1, CRP was right. Originally, this next installment of the Septic Community, which is on Sargon of Akkad, was only supposed to be a one and done. I ran into a slight problem doing that though. He himself has made that an impractical and near impossible task. I will say this though, what has been unfolding with him definitely has been entertaining, that is for sure. Currently, he is heading down a path leading right to the edge of and going off into the deep end, just like his friend Kraut and Tea did. I truly believe that Coach Red Pill was the catalyst that set things in motion for both of them too, which is a bit ironic. He seems to have that effect on people in the septic community and should be given credit where credit is due on this note. After all, if it wasn't for his calling things as he sees them, like with Butthurt Kraut and his accent, Kraut would never have gone and gathered the best YouTube has to offer for experts on subjects like chemistry, biology, and doxing. If it wasn't for Coach Red Pill doing the same exact thing again and calling out Kraut on his plans to smear him and dox others, we wouldn't have been able to witness firsthand the ensuing shit show and been entertained by it. For how much laughter and enjoyment I have received from watching it all implode, I just want to say thank you, CRP. I also want to thank you for helping to expose what Kraut, Jeff Dox Holiday, Based Mama, and everyone else on the server, such as Hi I Have a Tink and Squeal, for what they were up to. Without you doing that, a lot of innocent people could have had their livelihoods and possibly their lives affected greatly, if not ruined. That is because no one else with an actual presence in that community would have said anything and called it out. The ones who did only did so out of self-preservation. In saying what I have here, I am not being a fanboy of Coach Red Pills. Love him or hate him, he deserves the credit that I have given him here. Not only that, he deserves apologies from a bunch of people as well for trying to crucify him, claiming he was making the whole situation about himself and blowing things out of proportion. This is when he wasn't doing that at all, which is easily proven too, considering his videos do that. One of those people who owes him an apology is V. If he takes Sargon's dick out of his mouth long enough, maybe he can finally do that. It would be the adult thing to do. I would have said manly thing to do, but sucking dick isn't manly at all, but neither is V really. Now that I have been a real asshole saying that about V, it is time to get on with the show. I mean, if I don't, and wait any longer, this one-off that turned into a multi-part miniseries could end up a full-blown saga at this rate. So I guess it's time to take the first step on the journey of Sargon's downward spiral. In his video, Kraut It's Over, at one point CRP addresses Sargon of Akkad, what he believes Sargon knew, how he was the leader of the septic community, and that he had an obligation to do something. I happen to agree with his assessment on several notes, but I also disagree with him on others as well.
Sargon of Akkad, king of the skeptics, right? The leader, the acknowledged leader of the skeptic community. It is my contention that he knew what Kraut and Tea were up to. Like I said before, he wasn't in the server. He wasn't on the server, but he knew.
He then goes on to talk about how he happened to run into Sargon in a London camera shop and they're going to lunch together. I cut it in part for time and it wasn't necessary for context here. I have left the link to the full video in the description for those of you who wish to check it out.
He is leading the skeptics, or let me phrase it, he is at the head of the skeptics, but he's not leading them, okay? Now, I have no doubt that Sargon of Akkad knew about Kraut and Tea's thing for the following reasons. In this comment that he left in a conversation between Uzalu and JF Garipia, in the comment he says that he knew that Kraut was digging up dirt and he didn't approve. Now this was, as you can tell by the comment and the dates, this was about a week before this whole scandal broke, right? And I looked at that comment, and then I listened to the whole conversation between Uzalu and JF, and there was no indication whatsoever that Uzalu, I mean, Uzalu didn't even like mention the possibility that Kraut was digging up dirt. He only talked about the fact that Kraut was, you know, attacking the alt-right, and that it was a foolish, quixotic endeavor, right? But he never mentioned anything about doxing or digging up dirt on anybody. That's what I knew.
Any reasonable person looking at that comment would come to the same exact conclusions of Sargon having more than a clue as to what Kraut was up to. I know I did when I saw it. I also saw it for what it was beyond that. Posting it had two rationales behind it, I believe. The first, which is quite clear, is that it was an attempt to get ahead of a brewing situation that was about to explode, while also providing plausible deniability. Doing something like this is all about saving your ass, nothing more. After all, if he truly didn't approve of what Kraut was up to, especially with what we know now about Sargon and what he actually knew about things, he would have done something to put a stop to it. The second rationale for him was about guilt and trying to absolve himself of it. This comment reeks of a guilty conscience, of someone who knows that they have an obligation to say something, but don't have the balls to do it beyond doing so in a YouTube comment posted to cover their ass. These are the actions of a bitch, not a man. Not only that, in trying to do what he did here, he blew his load way too early, which I'm betting is probably the story of his life with other aspects of it as well. Mrs. Sargon would probably be the best to ask on that note. He tipped his hand way before he should have. Remember, this was about a week before things blew up. Someone who was completely innocent, that didn't take part, or feel that they weren't a part in some way, wouldn't say anything at all until the shit hit the fan. The simple reason for this is because they would have no reason to do so. He obviously had one though. See, he thinks his intellectual abilities are far more expansive than they are, that he is more intelligent than the majority of us out here and can easily pull the wool over our eyes. Sorry to break it to you, Carl, but that's not the case. I think Coach Red Pill said it best.
Sargon of Akkad knew what Kraut and Tea was up to. Perhaps not the specifics of it, but enough. He knew that Kraut and Tea was digging up dirt on other people. Digging up dirt, what does that mean? Going through their videos and finding good arguments against those videos? No, digging up dirt is digging up shit. Doxing shit. Things that will embarrass them. Dirt. Okay? Not like finding some video where somebody says something stupid. No, no, no. Dirt. Sargon of Akkad knew before the scandal broke.
As it turns out, from what we know now, this is 100% factual. Yet even with the comment he left, Sargon still tried to play stupid. Eventually he had to own up to knowing that Kraut was collecting information on people, but tried to claim that he had no responsibility in the situation whatsoever. This is when he definitely knew that Kraut was literally digging up anything and everything that he could use against people he saw as an enemy. It didn't matter whether they were a personal one or an ideological one. He did not care if he destroyed the lives or careers of those people in the process either. Knowing that he was up to this, even without knowing he had a crew working with him on it, it is bad enough. If Sargon knew that there were others involved, that is even worse, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did. This is all because of a YouTube La La Land bullshit drama too. Like everyone in Kraut's little group is 14 years old and the internet is fucking junior high school. In walks Sargon into the situation knowing Kraut and Tea, an individual with a history of doxing and smearing people, is collecting information on individuals. Anyone with half a brain has to know this cannot end well. So Sargon, with his self-perceived expansive intellect, he had to know what Kraut was up to. Hell, Jojo the idiot circus boy could figure that one out. It is apparent Sargon did, as it is also apparent he felt time was short before things went sideways, which I'm guessing someone probably tipped him off that things were going to drop. After all, when someone in the organization is going down, more often than not, someone tips off the Don that it's going to happen so they can insulate themselves. Which is exactly what the stepfather of the Septic community tried to do. Sargon contacted Kraut shortly before the shit hit the fan. As you can see here, he wanted to record the conversation.
Well, is it alright if I record this? Because this is important, and I think it's just better to be honest.
The whole reason why Sargon did this was for insurance. It was to cover his ass, nothing more. It didn't end up as part of any of his content, even though he starts off like it's going to be when recording. Not to mention the full court press he puts on Kraut. Just take a listen for yourselves.
So let's talk about what's happening, because I find all of this honestly kind of perplexing, right? I don't know why you are engaging in the sort of culture war tactics the SJWs engage in against the alt-right. And I've said to you repeatedly, privately, that you shouldn't do this. This is a waste of time and it's not a good thing to do. And you are doing it anyway, so I'm curious to know why you're doing it. I really don't see the advantage.
I have to ask, what exactly do you mean with cultural tactics?
Well, you know, digging up people's pasts, trying to sort of smear them to make them look bad, things like that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Come on.
No, I honestly have no idea what you're
talking
about.
Come on, man, come on.
No, you have to give me a specific example.
Hello? Okay, like finding Coach Red Pill's past. Like this sort of thing. Like digging up... Who are the other people? There are other people that you've...
what the fuck?
You've been digging stuff up on, and
I swear to God, his doing this is like out of a bad TV show or movie where an informant is trying to get the suspect to incriminate himself without having him taking them down in the process. This is so bad. It wouldn't have even made the cut for part of the plot of an 80s television series episode. And shows like Knight Rider and A-Team, they weren't exactly known for their plots if you catch my drift, especially when they hit their 4th seasons. There are 2 main reasons why Sargon did this. The first, he had mirrored a video of Kraut's on one of his channels and was being dragged down by the swirling current of the toilet bowl full of shit created by his doing so. The second, as you are about to find out, Sargon's hands are not clean in the Kraut doc situation.
No. Here's the thing.
He's gaslighting the skeptic community.
The Coach Red Pill stuff. I shared it with Sargon in a common interest saying, I won't publish this. I think you should know about this. And I shared it to him.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's ambushing me with it to make some kind of point on YouTube. Jesus Christ, he's burying me.
As you can see here, Sargon knew full well that Kraut and Tea collected smearing information on Coach Red Pill. For fuck's sake, he personally had his scummy little hands on it himself. This backs everything CRP said about the situation, with one exception. That exception being, he thought Sargon found out much later than he did.
But then, last night, it came out this Graf, whatever guy, the little minion of Kraut and Tea, who was helping him, one of the investigators, one of the detectives, right? Okay, well, it turned out that he recorded 5 hours, over 5 hours, of Kraut and Tea and Sargon talking. I'll bet you $100 right here and now that in those 5 hours, you know, it came out what Kraut and Tea was up to, right? And that was what, December 11th, you know? That was quite some time ago. Sargon knew. Kraut told him in that conversation. I don't know, I haven't heard the conversation. I'm sure it exists. It'll come out eventually. Maybe it's coming out now as I'm putting up this video. I don't know, I don't care. The point is, I'm sure that Sargon knew. He knew on the 11th. And he didn't say anything. He just put up some video on the Thinkery, I think, saying that he didn't approve of Kraut anymore in his endeavor insofar as the alt-right. That's not enough. Sargon of Akkad knew.
With this video evidence, it is clear that Sargon knew long before the 11th, where Kraut handed over CRP's information to him. Possibly he was hoping Sargon would use it to go after Coach Red Pill in some way, which ironically is exactly what he did and is important to note. On a side note, Coach Red Pill, you owe me $100 for proving you wrong here, with proving he knew long before you thought he did. But seriously though, knowing what Kraut is up to, what did Sargon do? Good question, which is why CRP asks it and then explains what he should have done. I do agree for the most part with him on things, but not for the same reasons, which we are going to get in now. First, let's see what CRP felt Sargon should have done.
And Sargon, what did he do? Did he act like a leader? No, he did not. I'll tell you what a leader would have done. After that conversation, I find out somebody who is allied to me, like Kraut was allied to Sargon, somebody like that is allied to me, and is running some doxing and smearing server, I'd hang up that conversation. I would do a video saying, I want nothing to do with Kraut and Tea because he is running a doxing and smearing server. That's what I'd say. I'd tweet it out. I'd do a little video about it. I'd say, I'm through with Kraut and Tea. Nothing to do with him. I throw him under the bus. I'd have to. Because you see, when you are the leader of a group of people, like Sargon of Akkad is, whether he likes it or not, because he actually doesn't like it, but we'll get to that in a minute. You see, if you are leading a group of people and one of your underlings does something stupid, you basically have 2 options. Either you put up with it and defend him, or you throw him under the bus. See? Well, actually, no, there are 3 possibilities. You ignore it, you defend him, or you throw him under the bus.
I agree that Sargon should have publicly exposed Kraut and condemned him, along with the rest involved after things came out, but I do not agree on the reasons why he should have. What it boils down to, from my perspective, is what would a decent human being do, not a leader, because a decent human being wouldn't allow another person with a history of doxing and smearing to do what Kraut and his crew are up to, where those actions could ruin innocent lives. A decent human being would expose what was happening and those involved, regardless of friendship or any other bullshit reason. Which in this situation, friendship is a bullshit reason. Why? Because an actual friend is someone who wouldn't do something like that. If they would do it to someone else, odds are they would do it to you. This isn't someone you want in your life, never mind turning your back on. Now, when it comes to what Coach Red Pill said about Sargon being a leader and the scope of this installment of Sargon's downward spiral, it isn't important right now, except in the context it was part of what triggered Carl and the unfolding situation we have been witnessing with him. We will be going into much greater detail on this note in the third installment of Sargon's downward spiral. Having said that, let's move on and get into what Sargon did in this situation. Having his scummy little hands on Coach Red Pill smearing info, knowing full well Kraut is a doxing and smearing piece of shit, like with Rage After Storm, he didn't do anything remotely like this. He didn't do a damn thing to try to stop him. It is time those chickens come home to roost too. What Carl did do was make a video in response to CRP, calling him out and putting it on his Thinkery channel as a matter of damage and spin control. It's titled, Learn to Spot a Confidence Trickster, which is just a bit of projection on his part, considering the video is made by someone with an SJW streak that was personally handed Coach Red Pill's information and is using the video to smear him. In this video, you can tell Sargon was scared of being taken down by Kraut and the shitstorm around him, with good reason too. After all, as we heard from Kraut's own mouth earlier, he personally handed Coach Red Pill's information to Sargon. That fact alone could have tanked him. It should have tanked him. Instead of his using it in a video like he did and getting away with it. You can find the link to this video in the description. Sargon wastes no time in this video. In the first 19 seconds, he goes right for the ad hominem attacking of Coach Red Pill on his channel, throws his name out there nonchalantly, and then feigning stupidity, claims he has no clue as to why Coach Red Pill thinks what he does. See for yourself, it's kind of amusing knowing what we know now.
So for anyone who doesn't know, there's a small drama channel called Coach Red Pill that's being run by a confidence trickster known as Gonzalo Lira. And it's weird that we're enemies. I actually don't know what I've done to incite this man's ire.
Now, Carl, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it could be the fucking fact that you knew what Kraut was up to and did nothing as to why he doesn't like you. It could also be the fact he believed in some way you were neck deep in the shitstorm and were having Kraut hand you his information. I highly doubt you are this stupid, Carl. You do overestimate your intellect, though. What I do not doubt is that you are sleazy and a disingenuous scumbag, seeing the things I have with you in this situation. Just look at how you try to use Coach Red Pill listening to you talking at lunch after running into each other in London to personally attack him.
But I have been following this Coach Red Pill guy because I bumped into him in a camera shop in London, which I do think was a coincidence. I mean, I hadn't told anyone I was going to the camera shop, so I don't see how he could possibly have known that I was going to be there. And he seemed quite surprised to see me. He's also really passive in real life. Really passive. Kind of a cuck, actually. It was weird that I was the one doing all the talking and he was the one sitting there passively agreeing with everything I said.
Sorry to break it to you, but in this situation, CRP wasn't being a cuck. CRP was cucking you, Carl, and you spilled your guts to him too as a result. You allowed him to collect a lot of information about yourself as an individual and what you believe in the process too. Good job on being played, my man. Bravo! What he did to you is called working the person. It's actually kind of an art, besides a skill. Sales and business professionals do it all of the time. Hell, even escorts and hookers do it. It is part of the tools of their trades. For the record, the last two professions, I'm not speaking from personal experience, or I'm sure some will wonder. If you know what you're looking for, it really isn't that hard to spot. One would think with the sanctimonious, know-it-all way that you've carried yourself for a little while now, you would have known that he was working you. Guess there are things you don't know after all, Carl. Just in case you don't believe me on his working you, I'm going to have him tell you what he did to you from his video titled How to Work a Room right now.
It's subtle, it's with discretion, okay? It's with a look, looking in the right direction, paying attention, encouraging people, okay? When somebody's talking, what do you say to them? You nod. You don't say anything, you nod. And then sometimes you say, yeah, that's so true. And they say something, you say, that happened to me. But you don't tell them how it happened to you. You just say, that happened to me, and leave it there. They'll fill it up, okay? Being a strong listener has enormous advantages when working a room. If you are a strong listener, focused, paying attention, okay, people will naturally respond to you and they will naturally like you because everybody loves it when they are listened to. Okay, it's a natural thing, okay?
Huh, interestingly, what you used from your conversation with him to claim he's kind of a cuck is exactly what he described here on working a person while working a room. Isn't that kind of funny in both an ironic and haha way at your expense? I kind of think it is. Now I've addressed you on this note personally, Carl, I'm going back to addressing the audience and exposing you for the disingenuous shitbag you are, even more than I already have so far. Moving on, let's take a look at what Sargon had to say about a post Coach Red Pill made on his YouTube channel regarding the whole Kraut and Tea doxing situation, in particular in regards to him.
But anyway, point 4. Clearly Sargon knew what Kraut was up to. I have evidence written in his own hand, so why didn't the leader of the Skeptics put a stop to this, or expose it before it had snowballed into this scandal? Interesting take on things.
You notice how he's trying to portray what CRP said as being based in fallacy through implication? Sargon is doing this as a tactic to try to negate what he said before his supposed addressing of it, which he really does not do. As you're about to see, instead he deflects.
As I'd never been in the Discord server, I didn't know what went on there. And I didn't really care either. It wasn't really my business, and I have my own work to do. So I was just keeping out of it.
Coach Red Pill specifically said that Sargon knew what Kraut himself was up to, not him and the doxing crew. But if you notice, Sargon doesn't exactly address that, now does he? This is what we like to call a lie by omission. By not mentioning what he knew about Kraut and what he was up to, which is probably way more than he'll ever admit, and focusing on the server part of things, he gave the appearance of responding to the accusation without really doing so. He continues using this tactic too of referring to the server and not Kraut himself when it comes to what Kraut was up to. Just look at how he does so here after trying to play down the scope of his comment.
It's interesting that he says, I have evidence written in his own hand. So, a public statement that I've made about Kraut. But anyway, so I didn't know what Kraut was doing in his Discord server. But every now and again, Kraut would tell me something like, via a private message on Skype, he'd tell me something like, I found out who Coach Red Pill's real name is.
As we have already established, Coach Red Pill said that Sargon knew what Kraut himself was up to, not him and his band of merry doxers. So it does not matter if Sargon knew what the group was up to. It only matters whether or not he knew what Kraut was up to. Nothing more. But if you focus on that, he has no ground to stand on here. Because he says later in this video, he knew Kraut was collecting information on people. The fact he did vindicates CRP and makes him an accessory by covering up for Kraut and not exposing him. Not only that, claiming that Kraut let him know about having Coach Red Pill's info in passing, as he has done here, is a flat-out lie. As we know from Kraut himself, he personally handed Sargon the information. It wasn't mentioned in a conversation on Skype in passing. To quote Maury Povich, Sargon, that is a lie. Sargon is afraid that people will start connecting the dots and be able to connect him to Kraut's shitstorm. Kinda like I have done here actually. Besides the spin control, lying, and ad hominem personal attacking and smearing of Coach Red Pill in this video, there is Sargon repeating multiple times that he told Kraut not to do what he was doing, kind of like he does here.
And I would say something back to him, roughly approximating to, what's the point? There's no point trying to dig up anything on these people. You should address the arguments you're having with them on the merits of the arguments and refute them that way. Not only is that the honest thing to do, it's the moral thing to do, and it's the only way you're actually ever going to win this argument. Because the only time digging up something on someone is really very relevant is to demonstrate that they are a hypocrite in order to discredit their position as an authority on something.
Not only has he done this in this video, he has done it quite a bit when being questioned too. It is his go-to defense. He uses it way too much. It is him trying to shut down any conversation about his personal responsibility in the Kraut situation. It is also funny how he is trying to take the moral high ground here, claiming he told Kraut not to dig up dirt on people and to actually address their arguments, because it is the honest and moral thing to do. In a video where he is using personal information to smear someone while claiming you cannot win doing that. Where were his high and mighty morals when Kraut handed him Coach Red Pill's information? Oh, conveniently they had the day off on that day. It appears they got the day off since, too. I mean, here he is talking about gathering dirt on someone being okay in order to discredit them as an authority on something and show they are a hypocrite. When again, he is making a video to smear an individual. So I guess Coach Red Pill being right about Sargon knowing what Kraut was up to makes him some kind of authority on the subject by his logic. But as we have seen, Sargon has had flawed logic throughout this whole situation with Kraut and Tea and his doxing crew. And since too, I will say this without even digging up dirt, just using videos like I have here, I think I have more than shown Sargon is a hypocrite. So you don't need to dig up dirt to do it. To say it is okay to do so to discredit someone just goes to show that Sargon is a scumbag and has no problem resorting to the tactics of the left.
Which is why every time I spoke to Kraut about this, I told him not to do it. But I'm not his boss, I'm his friend. And I gave him my advice, obviously confidentially, because we are friends, and you don't just leak things from your friends. And as far as I was aware, he hadn't actually spread anything around. He hadn't actually made any information public. So what exactly was I supposed to do? As far as I can tell, I've done nothing wrong. Which is why it's weird that this Coach Red Pill guy seems to have such animus against me, and he seems so intent on dragging me into this.
Here's another proclamation from the great Don Sargon that he told Kraut not to do what he was doing. The reason for it, as you can see, was to set up his admitting knowledge that Kraut was collecting information on people and minimize his culpability in knowing. He then uses the excuse they are friends and you don't leak things from friends. There is only one thing you can do with that type of information Kraut was collecting. That is use it to try to destroy people by smearing and or doxing them. That is all it's good for. Anyone with half a brain knows this. Apparently Sargon has less than that, if we believe him here. By Sargon's own logic, not my own, if Kraut was planning on killing someone, but he hadn't yet, Sargon would have no responsibility reporting that Kraut was doing it. Let that sink in for a minute, because that is what he is saying here. That is, unless he draws different lines between ending someone's life physically and ending it socially and financially, which the last part can lead to someone ending it physically themselves. Sargon has to know this too. So for him to say that he believes he did nothing wrong here in not exposing what Kraut was up to, when he was handed Coach Red Pill's information, is complete and total bullshit. That is, when you look at it from a perspective of reality and not one based in La La Land. He is actually trying to claim here that he had no knowledge of Kraut spreading around or making any information public. This is when, as we know, Kraut handed him the information of Coach Red Pill personally. How is that not spreading it around? Sounds like it to me. Sargon doesn't stop here with the shitbaggery either. He even goes on to misrepresent Coach Red Pill's concerns with what Kraut and his doxing bunch were up to. Here, see for yourselves.
So let's talk about Coach Red Pill's fear of being doxxed, which is really bizarre. I mean, this must have real consequences for him, right? If that's the case, why does he put his address on his Patreon? If that's the case, why does he have a video in which he doxes himself?
W2 5BD. Let me repeat that. It's W2 5B as in boy, D as in dog.
Kind of weird for someone who's afraid of being doxxed. Unless this wasn't about him being afraid of being doxxed, and in fact this was some form of stratagem on his part. Which I have to say, it's really starting to look like to me.
If you notice, he is making a claim that Coach Red Pill was worried about being doxxed himself and is keeping the focus on him. Why? Because a lot of people in the Septic community and those who follow them are not fans of CRP. They are quite the opposite of that, actually. By doing this, it keeps the focus off of the people who Kraut and the doxing bunch were targeting, which is what Sargon wanted. Because the other people on the list, they are actually liked by people who follow the Septic community. I mean, if it's about them, Sargon looks like a complete and total piece of shit for not exposing Kraut on what he knew about the situation. Having said that, let's look at what Coach Red Pill actually had to say about doxing and smearing in regards to himself and others, which has been consistent between multiple videos too.
They were getting together, getting information about people with the aim of silencing them. Silencing their ideas because they didn't like the ideas and they couldn't argue against the ideas that these people had. That was the problem. And so the only method they knew to counteract the ideas that they didn't like was to find personal information about them and try to dox them and try to smear them. And it was their bad luck that they came across me as their first target. And I got out ahead of this. And I was able to basically, tell them to give big fuck you very much because it didn't matter. Because I, myself, it doesn't matter if I get doxed or not, okay? My circumstances are such that it's not going to be important. Maybe somebody here or there will actually know somebody close to me in my life and they'll be pissed off, but they're not going to be surprised because they already know. But other people whose livelihoods are a little bit contingent, other people who don't have the means to withstand some kind of media assault, because after all, that's why they contacted the New York Times. Because they wanted to drive these bigger channels to the ground. Destroy Molyneux, destroy Black Pigeon Speaks, destroy Paul Joseph Watson. That was the point, to silence them, because they didn't like what they had to say. Because Kraut and Tea and everybody on that server, at heart, was an SJW.
Clearly here he is making it about others. He flat out says that he could survive someone trying to drag out his personal life and make it public. He does talk about bigger creators here, but he also has said a lot on the note of smaller ones as well, like Aiden Paladin for example. She is someone who is in the heart of SJW territory, working on her doctorate in the field that she is, and he has made it known how their going after her could have really messed things up for her. When Coach Red Pill has said things like this, it is clear Sargon is lying and trying to deceive people. No matter how much he protests he is open and honest, I have clearly proven that is not the case. From that point in Sargon's video on, it's all downhill from there. He goes into smearing mode. He takes a Skype conversation that both have published and tries to use it to go after Coach Red Pill. To be honest, I really don't see it painting him in the light that Sargon is claiming it does. I suggest you watch both of them talking about the conversation and come to your own conclusions. This goes on for a long time too. Towards the end of this video of Sargon's, which is bringing us to the end of part 1 of Sargon's downward spiral, we see him go to the Kiwi Farms dump on Coach Red Pill and drag up his unrelated past to the current situation. This is when we know that Kraut has already given it to him, which was probably a good idea when you're trying to feign stupidity and deny. Don't get me wrong, what I'm about to show you in this last part of Sargon's video in regards to Coach Red Pill is despicable and sleazy. I mean that too. But it has absolutely no bearing on the situation itself. The whole point of it is to attack CRP, which Sargon was more than happy to do.
So this was posted to Kiwi Farms. Now, it says King of Pole posted it, and we verified it. And if it is King of Pole, the one I know, hey man, how's it going? How you doing? Long time no speak. I don't know whether it is. I don't know who it was actually posted this. It could just be someone with a similar name or something like that. I don't know. But this is just all public information. As you can see, it's YouTube videos. It's him archives. It's nothing that's not already public. It's just been brought together on this post. And you know what's really interesting is that his first career began in 2010-2011 as the successful world-renowned economist, which I'm going to just take at face value, because the coach seems like a trustworthy kind of guy. And he got together with someone called Steve Keen, who is actually a known and real economist. And so you might be wondering why debunking economics is in those links. That'd be Steve Keen's website, where he posts multiple lectures he gives and posts conversations with subscribers to the website. Now, the original version of that website was free for anyone, and Steve Keen was beginning to be unable to manage it due to its size and growth. That was when Gonzalo Lira, aka Coach Red Scam, proposed a subscription-based website where subscribers would pay $40 a month and Gonzalo would manage the website for Steve. Based off a website that Coach Red Scam had previously made, the website that does not exist anymore but was called liraspg.com, he said he would maintain the entirety of the website as long as it got 300 new subscribers a month. Now here is where the scam begins. Professor Keen was notified from his payment statement from the website itself, debunkingeconomics.com, that the amount of payments were only half the expected amount of the number of users. Keen notified Coach Red Scam multiple times during the event of this issue, while Coach stated that he was incorrectly calculating expected revenue. Yes, the Google Pro failed economist telling a real economist his figures are wrong. Over several months of trying to fix the deficit, Professor Keen decided to shut down the site. Coach Red Scam refused to acknowledge the emails to shut down the site, and after 6 months of requesting the coach shut down the site, Professor Keen recommended to all of his followers to change credit card information to protect themselves from our little scam artist here. Even to this day, Professor Keen has nothing good to say about Coach Red Scam. If I sang a song about him, it would be You Are Soul, with the 2 words alliterated for effect. So, it looks like Coach Red Pill has actually legitimately scammed a bunch of people out of a bunch of money, which I presume is the reason why he had to get off social media for 3 years. This gained so much attention that an economic magazine wrote on this very topic here. Steve Keen fights back after his website is stolen by Gonzalo Lira. Whew. Seems a little shady. It seems like a weird thing to do. Why would you just steal someone's website and start siphoning off money and tell them, The Economist, that his sums for the website's income are wrong? And as far as I'm concerned, that's the pertinent information on Gonzalo Lira, aka Coach Red Pill.
To say this information is pertinent like he is here is being completely dishonest. If it was, then Sargon should have explained how Coach Red Pill, being an economist with a shady business past, affects his creating content on political and social commentary, not to mention how-to videos as well, like the one on working a room that Carl was cucked by the skills CRP imparts in it, for example. In these contexts, it does not matter. The only context with it here is smearing Coach Red Pill. As a person, CRP has an effect on people that can rub them the wrong way, to say the least. The fact Sargon would choose to smear him is proof of that. Where he does have this effect, with some, it appears, the result can be brain damage. Just look at Kraut with CRP calling him out as he did. It led to Kraut heading down the path of taking on the alt-right, starting his little server, and finding the best YouTube scientists and doxers he could. Sargon is no different. He got into it with Coach Red Pill, got his head smacked around a little bit, and the brain damage set in. As I have said, CRP is the catalyst. He sent Sargon down the path that he has chosen as of late, a path that is mirroring his friend Kraut in many ways. Sargon is now taking on the alt-right, which is the planned topic for the next installment of Sargon's Downward Spiral. Then he went off and formed his own little group by rebranding the Septic community as the Liberalists and declaring himself the king of the bunch, which is the planned topic for the third installment. At the rate things are going, God only knows what will happen next with him. Coach Red Pill doesn't bring out the best in people after he's triggered them, after all. He brings out who they are and they show their true colors. If it wasn't for his ability to do this, we wouldn't have got this glimpse into who Sargon of Akkad really is. Seeing what we have with him, the whole point of my doing this series is so that people don't end up taking what he says at face value and investigate for themselves, as I am also doing it so people see who he is, so they don't end up blindly following him. Members of the Septic community have already caused enough damage out here. I don't want to see any more of it. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.